Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Stephen with you, or as I like to go by, Rashbi, uh, Rabbi Shmuel ben Yehoshua. I know that's a little hokey and a little goofy, but kind of like it. Kind of like it, you know. So what it is. All right. So as much as I need to be wearing glasses, I'm going to take them off because of the glare. So that way I can face you and you're not looking at the reflection. Okay, so first of all, thank you to everybody that showed up for our Purim festivities. And, I have to tell you, it was very well attended, and kudos to all of you for showing up. And it looks like you all had a good time, and that's what matters. I think I've mentioned this before that one of the greatest compliments somebody gave me, if I may, is a former bat mitzvah student told me that she said I made Judaism fun. And my comment was, it is fun. It really is. It's enjoyable. We have our Torah studies, and everybody seems to get into it, and people just get these aha moments, and they love learning about Torah, and they see the relevance to their lives, and it's just a beautiful thing. When you have 25 people show up for a Megillah reading, 30 people show up for our Purim carnival. And again, when you have 20, 30 people show up for Saturday morning, well, you're doing something right, and the synagogue is doing something right. So we've also been having a good time Friday night playing the guitar. That seems to be received well. And again, it's not a concert, it's just enhancing the already beautiful spiritual experience. So, a lot of people or some people might take exception to describing some of our services, some of our offerings as fun. They say, "Well, wait a minute. This is Judaism. This is serious stuff. You're praying. You've got God. You need to take it seriously. And there needs to be a certain solemnity to it." I don't disagree with that, and I absolutely agree. But and I think that it's kind of a little bit of a challenge to walk that line. That, as Martin Buber used to discuss it, he coined the term that narrow ridge, where you're enjoying yourself, and yet it doesn't take away from the importance and solemnity of what you're doing. So it's really kind of a balancing act, but I think we've kind of got it settled. I think people really get something out of it. But it's not boring. It's not, oh gosh, that type of thing. And that's what matters. That makes it more relevant. It makes it more acceptable. People are going to remember it. It's going to mean more to them. They're going to walk out of the shul, feeling good, feeling fulfilled, spiritually fulfilled, and that's kind of what matters. So with that, let's transition over to this week's Torah portion, which is a double portion. This year is just a regular year, 12 months instead of the leap year of 13. So we double up on specific portions. And these are set up ahead of the time. There are specific portions that go together. In our case, they have paired Vayechel with Pekudei. And they are natural to go together because Vayekhel talks about the fact that our two craftsmen, Bezalel and Aholiab, from the tribes of Judah and Dan respectively, are carrying out the instructions to build the Mishkan, to make the furnishings, to weave the clothes for the high priests and the priests, and that way they can do the inauguration. And Pekudei, of course, picks up from Vayechel, so it's almost like a continuation. Very natural that the two portions would be paired during a regular year when we have to do that. And again, just to review, why do we pair portions? Well, there are more portions, more parshot in the Torah than there are weeks of the year. And that is because of times like this, when we have a regular year. Now, when we have the leap year, we have 4 extra weeks. And we put the leap year in because, being a lunar calendar, we lose 11 days a year compared to the solar year. So after about 3 years, we're a month behind. And we have to add that month. Sometimes we only add it after 2 months, or after 2 years, in order to catch up. That way, Passover is always in the spring. Otherwise, if we just set a lunar calendar, 12 months, ultimately after a few years, we'd be doing Passover in the middle of winter. We'd be doing Hanukkah in the summer. We can't do that, especially since Passover, specifically according to Torah, is in the month of Aviv, which is the month of spring, and the sages see that as a positive commandment. Okay, so we have the idea of putting together the Mishkan. So isn't it interesting that in some places in the Torah, descriptions are very sparse? For example, the third parsha of Genesis, the third parsha of the Torah is Lech Lecha, and where we've been introduced to Abraham in the previous parsha of Noah, the chapter, it just gives the lineage, and it comes to Avram as he was called then. And now Lech Lecha picks up, God went to Abraham, when he was 75 years old. He's 75 years old. Why does it pick up then? Because it doesn't matter what happened before that. It doesn't matter where Jacob was for those 14 missing years. Now, there are midrashim, which is, kind of like the folklore. It kind of fills in the missing pieces. The story about Abraham with working in his father's idol shop and, smashing the idols and telling his father that one idol over there, the big one, was jealous. He decided to destroy them all. Jacob, they say, in those missing 14 years, he was off studying at the Academy of Shem and Eber, what they call Torah, which is God's law. Moses, he's a young man. He's in Egypt. He's raised in royalty. He kills an Egyptian taskmaster that is beating a Hebrew slave. And when he's discovered, he takes off. And when God comes to him, he comes back to Egypt. He's something like 80 years old. What happened in all those 50, 60 years, right? Doesn't matter. And yet, we had 2 or 3 portions already where God lays out to Moses, okay, I want you to build a tabernacle, the Mishkan. Mishkan from the word shochen, which means presence, which means neighborhood, right? God's presence. And the furnishings, the ark, the table, the altars, the incense altar, the offering altar, then the laver and the clothes for the priests, etc., etc. Why does God do that? Because we're physical beings. We need that physical connection. Why did the Erev Ra, the rabble, convince some of the Israelites to make a golden calf when they thought that Moses was late coming back down? Because we're physical, material beings, and we need that physical reference. So God says, okay, let's do that. Let's have this place where we quote unquote meet. As Moses Maimonides said in his book Guide for the Perplexed, as humans, we need to look at God in anthropomorphic terms. We need to ascribe human qualities to God. That's the only way we can relate. God is ineffable. That's a major, major revolutionary concept. All the other ancient peoples, even some religions today, they need gods, they need representations of what they're worshiping. Okay? God's asked us Jews to do something that's really pushing the envelope of perception. Worship me, and yet I'm not going to give you any material thing. Moses is up there in the cleft. Moses says, I want to know who you are. God says, okay, I'll pass before you, but you cannot see my face and live. You will see the back of my head. Again, anthropomorphic terms. So we have the idea that God's giving these instructions, and then we get 2 more portions that say, okay, and they carried it out, and goes into details of how they built and what they built. Why so much time, space, 5 portions almost devoted to talking about the building of the Mishkan? It must be very important, right? So look at Judaism. Look at the fact that there are some prayers that we do, the sanctifications, the mourner's Kaddish, the full Kaddish, the Ritas Chatzi Kaddish, the Baruch Hu, a Torah service where you need a quorum or a minyan of 10 people, 10 adults, in order to do that part of the service. So in Judaism, you have this group consciousness. You have this need to get everybody together. It's a group effort. It is a team sport. So with that sport, you need to carry out all the instructions. And that's part of what the idea is. You do something, you commit to something, you do it. What is the second commandment? It talks about not taking God's name in vain. Now, a lot of people say, well, you don't say, damn it, right? You don't say that because that's taking God's name in vain. Now, in Judaism, well, you don't say that out of respect. It's not really what the commandment means. What the commandment means is that you don't swear to Hashem on something like, oh, I swear to Hashem, I'm going to put a tie on. You don't. It's trivial. You don't do it. You make a commitment and you do it, and that's part of, I think, what this is all about. Part of the commentary says that the Israelites couldn't wait to get in there and dig in and do it. And they were so excited to build that Mishkan that God had to tell them, well, take a break on Shabbat. That's in there too. Very important. Take a break on Shabbat. That's your spiritual rest. Don't, leave some time, not just to rest, but also to devote yourself to that study. Very important. In your activities, accomplish, do things, grow as human beings, grow as material beings, but always take that time to mesh with Hashem, to meet with God, to get back to your spiritual selves, because that's ultimately what it's all about. That's why our religion, that's why our time and space revolves around worshiping Hashem. Shabbat Shalom. I want to thank all the people that stepped up to the plate and took care of services in my absence. The wedding was wonderful. It was great seeing family, and I'm glad to be back with you. Shabbat Shalom.